If you've ever watched a cooking show or follow any fitness gurus, you've probably heard of the Vitamix by now. It's that super blender that was invented in the 30s and literally birthed the infomercial era in the US.
One of the most wonderful machines that was ever invented, the Vitamix machine.
Today, the Vitamix is the ultra high-end blender on the market right now. It's basically the Ferrari of blenders. Not only does the Vitamix have an overwhelming number of 5-star reviews, but it also has a following of fanatics who basically make their livings off of reviewing various Vitamix models. It's kind of like some sort of blender cult. But is the adoration warranted? Is the Vitamix really worth the hype? Enter the Vitamix A2500. This blender has a 2.2 horsepower motor and is said to be the holy grail of perfect blending, in that it not only blends for perfect consistency, but also processes food whole, including a frozen pizza, but I wouldn't recommend that. But you're certainly paying for that so-called quality. The Vitamix A2500 can cost up to $750, plus tax. It comes with a 64-ounce container and this fancy thing called the tamper, which sort of looks like a baseball bat cum police baton. I am intimidated. I've sat up in the iconic Chatelaine kitchen to test if the Vitamix A2500 lives up to the boasting online reviews and the longing glances I keep getting from colleagues who pass by. I'm gonna compare it with a lower cost household blender that retails for around $200, fully aware that the Vitamix is probably gonna do a better job. But the question is, will it do so much better that it'll be worth dishing out a week's worth of salary to buy it, or is it not as impressive as everyone would like you to believe? Let's get swirling, shall we? The Vitamix is so powerful that it can supposedly pulverize peanuts into homemade nut butter. That sounds pretty impressive. All you have to do is take some roasted peanuts, stick them in the Vitamix, and follow a slightly complicated set of instructions. I maybe figured it out. Oh, we forgot to turn it on! The machine has 10 speeds and 3 preset programs. For this recipe, you have to start at speed 1 and then go all the way to 10, then go back down to 7 after you hear a chugging sound. Normally, this is something you'd use a food processor for, which could cost $250 to $400 per machine. That's terrifying. After only around 2 to 3 minutes, we had smooth, creamy peanut butter. That is some cool peanut butter. That was so easy. Here you go. It tastes like store-bought peanut butter. That's really impressive. Vitamix claims you can clean the blender in 60 seconds, where you fill up half the pitcher and add a couple of drops of dish soap, but that didn't really work on oily peanut butter residue. Then I tested out a regular blender to see if it could also make nut butter. This one had 5 settings, so I picked the highest one. It managed to chop the peanuts up into a crunchy powder, but peanut butter it did not produce. It might have worked if I had stopped and stirred and scraped multiple times, but it was obvious this blender wasn't going to make smooth peanut butter as easily as the Vitamix did. So after several attempts, I threw in the towel. One of the plus sides of the Vitamix is how it can handle hot liquids. Apparently, the friction of the blades is so powerful that it creates heat and warms up your soup while also blending it. It's science! I'm excited to do this and see if it works. I added a raw onion, some pre-boiled potatoes, refrigerated vegetable broth, and some milk. The Vitamix has a soup function, so I used that, which had the blender going for around 5 minutes and 45 seconds, which is a long time to stand with your hand on a blender. What? I can't hear you! Look at that. If it tastes bad, that's my fault. I'm not a good cook. The blender did what it said it would do, so let's see how this tastes. That's hot. That is definitely cooked onion and perfectly pureed potatoes. Cool. The cleaning function did much better this time around, since soup is fairly easy to clean up. And then I tried to make hot soup in a regular blender. I used the same ingredients and whirled the blender for the same amount of time, which was around 5 minutes. The result was soup that looked pretty much the same as the Vitamix mixture, but there were some visible potato skin flecks in the soup which weren't there in the Vitamix soup. Honestly, it tastes just as good, but it's not hot. And now the moment we've all been waiting for. How well does a Vitamix make smoothies compared to your run-of-the-mill blender? I decided to make a kale, banana, strawberry smoothie with some ice cubes for good measure. The fruit is frozen too. My biggest pet peeve with homemade smoothies with leafy greens like kale is that it leaves little flecks of green throughout. That is not fun. This is the reason everybody wants the Vitamix, and all my coworkers stared at it with jealousy. Let's see if it actually lives up to the hype, yeah? Okay. I decided to use the smoothie function on the Vitamix, and surprisingly, it wasn't able to immediately handle all the stuff we put in there. But not to fret, that's why it comes with a tamper. It took some stirring, but eventually all the ingredients were incorporated into a somewhat smoothie. Let's pour our delicious sludge smoothie. It's not beautiful, and it doesn't taste amazing, but once again, that's my fault. Now it's time to test out the blender with a lower price tag. It made surprisingly quick work of blending up all the ingredients, though that could have been due to some thawed bananas. While the resulting smoothie poured really well, it had those green kale flecks I mentioned earlier, which the Vitamix smoothie did not. Does the Vitamix A2500 live up to the hype? Sort of. The machine was more impressive in its food processing abilities than its smoothie making powers. I thought that the Vitamix would make easy work of blending up some fruits and leafy greens, but it kind of struggled and ended up requiring human intervention as well as baseball bat intervention. But I guess that's kind of the point of the tamper that it comes with. That being said, it's definitely not a deal breaker because the resulting smoothie was well blended and free of flecks of green stuff. And while the cheaper blender definitely did an admirable job, it didn't quite eviscerate the leafy greens to the same degree as the Vitamix. Now that peanut butter though, that was impressive. The A2500 has some serious food processing power, so a huge plus of this product is that you could buy it and skip purchasing a bulky, expensive food processor. And that would save you counter and cabinet space. A cheaper blender, while still pretty powerful, didn't really live up to the Vitamix here. Powdered peanuts, anyone? The fact that the Vitamix's super fast and powerful blades heated up soup to a piping hot temperature is pretty remarkable. A blender could make your dinner in 5 minutes. I think that is a major selling point and not something most regular blenders can do. The Vitamix is very durable, clearly, and has a 10-year warranty. So if you pay $750 once, plus tax, it'll cost you around $85 a year for the 10 years that you have it. If all you're looking for is a pretty decent blender for a smoothie every now and then, you can go for a $200 to $300 blender from a trusted company and it'll work just fine. But if you drink a fancy smoothie every day that might cost you like $10 a pop and plan to use the crazy food processing abilities that the Vitamix has to offer, then it's really worth your money and worth the hype. It comes with a 64-ounce container and this fancy thing called the tamper. my face was been so funny there. Nice! Oh, that was too high again. That was pretty funny, actually.